All right, Mayor, we had a council meeting on the 10th of March, Tuesday. You started out the meeting with I guess, a community advisory of sorts on this coronavirus situation. Do you maybe want to just kind of reiterate the comments you made, and I guess basically the fact that Marshfield is ready should coronavirus show up here? I mean, take us back to your comments and what we know at this point about our response, or I guess readiness for it.
Sure. Well, as of right now, it's March 12th and it's 11:10, which is important because at 11:30 today, Governor Evers is having a press conference to talk about what he's going to do. Are they going to do a state of an emergency or are they not? And I don't want people to worry when they hear state of emergency, because all that means is federal funds can come here quicker. So the reality of the situation right now in Wisconsin is, and this is different from just the other night, there are 6 confirmed cases of the coronavirus that we are aware of. One of them is now virus-free, so there's 5 active ones. We understand that 4 of them are at home in quarantine and 1 is in the hospital. And it is, it's spreading more and more. I think we're going to see more of that. However, it's not anything, I think, for people to panic about, but we have to be diligent. So we are as prepared as I believe that we could possibly be. And I'll talk about that for a second. But if you want information on this, at the federal level, you can go to hhs.gov, and you can get a lot of information on the coronavirus. You have the Wood County Health District and Health Department and Marathon County Health Department have phenomenal information out there and it's up to date. So if you want to stay informed on that, you certainly could go to those websites. And right here in Marshfield, we're very lucky because we do have a world-class health facility right here. And you can go to marshfieldclinic.org, and they've got great information there. And we've been in contact with them. They are prepared for this. They have a task force that they've put for this in all of their facilities. They're doing daily drills, so they are about as prepared as they could possibly be. And there's been no test positives here. With the federal funding that's coming, I believe there'll be more tests that are readily available. I've talked with actually this morning. I talked with the superintendent of the schools briefly. And they are prepared and they're monitoring this daily. We're seeing, at the university levels, they're going to take off early and they're going to extend their spring break. That has not happened at the local schools yet, but this is changing rapidly. And of course, our police department and fire department, our police chief Rick Ramza and Scott Owen, our fire chief, they are both very well aware of this. All of our departments are ready. So this is where we are at in Marshfield is we're ready. We hope it does not hit here. But if it does, I believe we're as prepared as we could possibly be. The clinic says very clearly there's 3 things that are going on. Number 1, they have to identify if somebody actually does have the virus. And many of the symptoms are exactly the same of the flu: fever, chills, coughing. And it could advance pretty rapidly. So the first thing that they would do is identify, and then the next thing would be to isolate. Whether it be in the hospital, and they're very clear on their system that they can handle isolating folks, and the other patients that are symptom free or not even dealing with that will be separate and will be safe. So the item 2 there is to isolate, and then item number 3 is informed. And I believe that they are plenty well ready for this. What we could do as a community is, number 1, not panic, but be diligent. Where this is affecting for the elderly and people who are with underlying serious medical issues. If you're elderly and you have underlying medical issues, you're probably at the highest risk. So you might not want to be out in the public a lot. You want to, take care of that. People still have to go to the grocery store and everything else. So this is what we can actually control. When I say we, I mean all of us here in Marshfield. If you sneeze, these are basic. right? If you sneeze or if you cough, cover your mouth, cover your nose. Wash your hands, wash them a lot. If you're sick, stay home from work. And if your children are sick, keep them home from school. And I know many times with working families that's hard, but the more we could do for prevention, I think the better off that we're going to be. And I'll be making a statement later that I'll be putting out on social media after I hear what Governor Evers has to say at 11:30. Just give an update there to the citizens. So I would just say in reassurance, we are as ready as we could possibly be. We are not panicked about this at all. However, we're going to be very diligent about this, and I think if we're all diligent, I think we'll get through this okay.
Yeah, the mayor said it very, very well. The only thing I would add to that is just to let you know that there's continuing dialogue involves city officials and others working together. I just came from an emergency planning team meeting. We have them monthly on a variety of things. We do planning for emergency drills and that type of thing. But today we spent most of the time on the coronavirus, and we talked about how we're connecting with the school district and the medical facility, the colleges, and all the different players in the community to make sure that we're coordinating and that we're talking regularly and what are we hearing and how can we help them do what they need to do. So, it's great cooperation, and it's good to see people in constant contact with one another about the issue as it evolves. But I totally agree with what the mayor said. Be diligent, but let's not panic. People are working very hard to try and control things as best they can. But again, personal hygiene and good care, smart thinking is important. It's also a personal issue besides being a collective issue.
And one thing I just want to add for that to the Marshfield Clinic, right now they are currently working in concert with the CDC as well as our local health departments, and they are in constant communication. So I'm very proud of the fact that the Marshfield Clinic has taken such an active role in this. And the rest of us have to go out there and we have to live our lives, but know that if help is needed, help is there. And for the citizens here, we are as prepared as we could possibly be.
All right, Mayor, there was a pretty favorable economic development annual report given too on Tuesday. Maybe just want to get your thoughts on that and what you heard from Josh Miller during his report.
Well, it was very optimistic. I mean, first of all, the work that Josh put into, and he had help with Mackey and a few other places, putting this report together was awesome. And, there are some very optimistic things here. One thing you see is our TIF districts are going up. Our population is slowly ticked up over the last couple of years. Small amounts. One thing that you're going to hear about very soon is the census will be coming out. It'll be coming out on April 1st, and that's going to help us, I think, even get a better sense of where our population is. But overall, I mean, with everything that you see going on, I think we're in great shape. A warning sign, if you will, is our housing situation. We basically have about 2 to 3 year inventory left of buildable lots. We have some other big apartments that are going up over behind the high school and over behind Walmart. These are brand new, and so there's going to be more people that come to work here that can live locally, and I think that'll be good because it's something that our businesses, with the help of Mackey, it's one thing our businesses want is they need people to fill jobs. So it's very interesting. We were there, Steve and I were there yesterday at the Pizza Ranch at their ribbon cutting, and that was a great place. And I think that the way that they did their social media with kind of getting many people really motivated about going there, I thought that was very interesting. And I think that what you feel right now in Marshfield, I said it yesterday, the sense of business optimism is palpable. And we're seeing more and more businesses open up. Now, so overall, I think that the plan that was presented puts a very favorable light on where Marshfield is at right now. And with that favorable report, it is not lost on us that there are still businesses that struggle, and those are just the reality of businesses, depending on where they are at in their development. But they have resources, and I think one of the things that I am so impressed with and so proud of is, and I will tell you, Steve Barr gets much of the credit for this, is this atmosphere of people working together. And so in these businesses, they've got resources to help them. With our partners at Mackey, there's just a lot there. So the overall report was extraordinarily favorable. But I just don't want it to, many times people only, on these things, city governments only talk about the positive and stuff like that, which this report is wonderful.
Yeah.
But it is not lost on us that there are still people out there and businesses out there that do need help and do need support. And I believe we have that here. And I just go, I think what's comforting in the business level, I hate to go back to the coronavirus, to know that our Marshfield Clinic, a world-class organization, is right here and they are at the ready. They are doing so much preparation and they are ready for this, is kind of the environment that we have, and again, under Steve's leadership, that we have in the entire city, not just in the medical community, but for businesses and for employees and for housing. This is the type of environment I think the cities thrive for. And I think Steve has done a great job.
I can just add a couple things. First of all, thanks for the kind words. And it's been everybody working together. Josh Miller is our Development Services Director, other staff, the mayor and council. Bob's been a great champion for new business development. And I think that the comments that we even heard at the Pizza Ranch opening were good. I talked for a little bit with the gentleman from northwestern Iowa who's a member of the corporate office there. And he said, hey, when we came here and looked at this place and saw what was going on, heard some stories, we just saw this as a community that the good things were happening in. And that's good to hear from an outsider. Sometimes we're positive ourselves, but we don't know how other people from outside Marshfield would view us. My other takeaways are two things. One, just the idea that we sometimes get down on ourselves because, like I've said before, Shopko closes, Office Max closes, Figgy's closes. Some people get that woe is us kind of thought. If you look at the things in this 20-page report that have happened, new business development, many other things that are going in a positive direction, even the average sale price of homes going up as much as it did, there's a lot of positive things to build on, and that gets lost in the midst of a Shopko closing type of incident. The final thing I'll say about it, this can now be a tool that Bob and the council can use when they're being asked to make decisions. So let's say that a couple months from now, Josh Miller comes forward and says, look, I'd like you to put this money or this resources toward housing development. Well, you can look back and say, well, do we really need this kind of housing? Oh yeah, it looks like we're still short on single family lots, or whatever the topic is. This can be a resource to use actual facts to support whether or not we would do something or not do something based upon the perceived need. So we all have anecdotal stories, but this gives you some real information to use in making decisions, and I think the council will do that going forward.
Okay. Also, I wanted to jump to an item in closed session. It said, closed session conferring with legal counsel, let's see here, concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or likely to become involved. Possible litigation with Menards. Do you want to take that one, Mayor, or do you have any comments on that?
I'll let Steve take that one.
Okay.
I think we've talked a few times before in this setting about the dark store theory, and just as a reminder to anybody watching, on what David is covering here as well, that this is based upon the thought that a closed store in some community should be used to compare from an assessed value standpoint to an existing store like one here in Marshfield. And so both Menards and Walmart have made that argument, and it's going on across the country, other big boxes too. Menards said, look, you've got us valued at $8.2 million. We've looked at some other stores, including some stores that are no longer operating, and they're similar square footage, might be the same size, but they're valued a lot less. They were looking for a significant reduction, really about 25% roughly, in a reduction in value, and we found that to be not appropriate. So we've had a lot of discussions. This has now gone on for about a year. the city assessor, Jim Toth, and I sat in on a phone mediation session. We were polite, we were cordial, but we clearly weren't going to go where they wanted us to go. And, they've relented as time has passed. Now, part of that, I believe, is because decisions that have been made in court on some of these cases have been trending more favorable towards cities and villages. Not all of them, but the trend has been that the dark store theory has lost a little bit of pull, it appears, in court. But still, it's an argument you can make. Well, we got to the point now where they finally came to our city assessor and said, you know what, we'll settle on your $8.2 million, okay? We'll forget about the claims from back in 2017, 2018. We'll let all that go. We're not looking for any relief. But the only thing we ask for you is we've done some minor improvements. We've increased the value in the last year. So it would normally go up from 8.2 to closer to 8.7. We'd like for 2020 for the assessed value to remain 8.2. So then you say to yourself, well, the city's losing some value. Why would we do that? But a couple of things, one of which is that if we had gone to court, if we did go there, nobody knows what would happen. And honestly, they've come the lion's share of the ways to where we're at. It doesn't bind us for 2021 or beyond. It doesn't tie our hands in any way, shape, or form. And that overall, given where we sit, we think it's a good deal. And we hope the public views it that way too. The council and the mayor have been very strong and very firm about the fact we're not looking to give in on these things. I mean, and we don't want to go there. But this resolution is, 98% of the way to where we were. And, rather than incur additional court costs and take a chance on rolling the dice in court, they've come to where we're at pre-2020, and it seems like a good resolution for us. And we're hopeful that when we go down the road with Walmart later this year that we'll get to a similar resolution. There is no will or desire on the part of the mayor and council to say, okay, we give, what do you need? We value them as good corporate customers, good corporate entities here in the city, but we've got services to provide. And all the corporate entities should be paying their fair share along with all of our residents.
But what is Walmart asking for?
I don't have it in front of me. It's similar. I think the value of their property is about 10 point something million, so it's more than the Menards facility. And I think they're initially we're looking for something in that 20% range in reduction. Again, we've gone through mediation on that one as well, and it looks like that may be heading to court. But as we get closer to court, like in criminal proceedings, oftentimes there's a resolution worked out. But again, I think the council feels similar, that we're not trying to be tough guys, but we feel that the value is correct. We feel that the comparison between an active, vibrant store in central Wisconsin, in a city of 20,000, and a store that's been empty for 5, 6, 8 years in another community, gathering dust, is not a fair comparison. And you can argue that till the cows come home, but I think that courts are moving more toward our direction. But again, every court looks at it a little differently.
Realistically, it's not an argument that, and this is why I'm very proud of the council and the decision that they made all along of, we're not just going to go and do this, when you want to take your assessed value down from 8.2 to 6.7 or 6.8, and you're basing it on, comparing a active, thriving business. Menards is thriving. And then you're going to compare that space to a space over here that's empty. In no sense of the word, in any appraisal world at all, is that even done. So I think they started off just with a wrong base. And it's very nice because all along when we've had discussions on this, the council's like, nope, we're not gonna go there. And I think we're to that point now with they come in and they took away all of their claims for the past couple of years, and now this is where we're at. I think we're to a point of where it's reasonable. And it was approved, I think 5-3, and now we move forward from here. And I think it certainly believe it was the right decision that the council made because of the potential unknown, and it doesn't do anything to our future value. So I think we're in great shape.
In fact, for year 2020, what we're forgiving, I shouldn't say forgiving, what we're foregoing is actually slightly less than $5,000 in city taxes. What they were asking for initially in terms of refunds from previous years was over $100,000. So, I mean, clearly it came toward our side. One more thing I want to say about the dark store theory. There was and it wasn't Menards. There was another big box down in the Milwaukee metro area that was fighting their claim. I believe it was with the city of Brookfield or Waukesha. And during the process of which they were asking for a big reduction, it was found that they were advertising the building for sale at a price that was way more commensurate with what the city had assessed it at. So on one hand, they were saying, hey, it's only worth this because it's been vacant for 5 years. Come on. I'm sorry, not the vacant store, but what they were trying to get it down to was based upon a store that was vacant somewhere else. I said that wrong. But the vacant store that they were trying to compare it to was being marketed at a value that was commensurate with what this other store was. So on one hand, it's kind of like if I said, well, hey, the value of my house ought to be way lower. But then I turn around and I'm marketing it, and you look in the realtor thing, and it's what the city is assessing it for. That's kind of telling. I think deep down they know it's really not the value of a store that's been vacant for 7 or 10 years.
Do you plan on, when 2021 rolls around now, is there going to be a reassessment at 8.7 plus? How do you plan on, or is it too soon to tell where you might go following this year?
I wouldn't say that. It's certainly the assessor will take a fresh look at it later in the year as we get ready for the 2020 assessment roll. But I guess the main point, and I'll say it clearly again, is this agreement does not bind either side to anything. So we could assess it at 8.7. They could turn around and say it's worth $6 million. It doesn't bind anybody to anything beyond this one particular tax year.
You said the vote was 5-3, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what were the arguments against it? What were the council members saying that were not for conceding to this?
There were some folks that thought if you give in, they didn't want to go to the taxpayer and say, if you give in, then you're going to have a lot of people coming to do this, which people can always come and look at that. And it just gets down, and that was the primary premise of it. And I think that there are some members of the council that just have we're not giving in to the big stores, which is fine. It's a good argument. And I believe that there were others. And I go by the thing of, okay, in essence, we won this very big for them to go to $100,000, and then now all of a sudden we're down to the difference between the value for 1 year, and it's just under about $4,700 difference, and it doesn't. Now, where it would have been different if they would have said, hold this value for 5 years or 10 years, then that would be a different thing. But when you're just doing it for 1 year and it's over $4,700, the cost to go fight that would be more than that. So it gets down to being a very pragmatic decision. Nobody wants to give away the value, which we are not. It just came down to when you have to look at all the factors. So I think sometimes people get tunnel visioned in on this right here is the one thing, and I'm not going to do this. And you have to look at the whole picture. And so, but those are basically the arguments against, is that, they were concerned as, are we giving in? And because it was just for 1 year, and with what these people came back with of giving up the $100,000, I believe there was 5 of the council members felt that was a pragmatic approach and the appropriate thing to do.
And believe me, those 3 people, or maybe 1 or 2 of them, may have thought that we gave in or we shouldn't have, and it's not a good precedent. But believe me, communities get reputations. We get reputations in terms of how friendly we are to economic development. You have reputations for everything across the state and beyond our borders. The reputation we established from this case is one of, they're not going to be yielding. They're serious about this. And that will affect Walmart. That will affect if any other big boxes in our community wanted to challenge as well. We held the line for a year in these discussions and ended up with a very limited compromise, if you will. So they can be proud of the fact that what we're going to be seen as is people who didn't cave in. That will be the takeaway.
And again, on that, just to be clear, this does not mean that the value of this property going forward would remain. It could be higher or lower, but the issue is, and I think this resonated with all of the aldermen, I think more with some than others, is the fact of there was no stipulation, as I said earlier, that this value has to remain in effect for any amount of years before. And I think that's a that is what really made it a lot simpler to get to this point. And again, I go back to when you start looking into legal fees of how much it would defend. If we could spend $20,000 to save $4,700, I don't believe that's a good use of taxpayer money. It's just not.
And just one final thing. If we did go to court, we could, quote, win and yet not get what we wanted. The judge is free to say, I don't go with $8.2 million, I don't go with $6 million. I say $7.9 million is what I think based upon what I've heard. And so we can say we won, but there'd be some give back. So it's still rolling the dice. And again, when you get to the point where we were facing over $100,000 in potential payment back in claims, and we're going to end up losing $4,000, a little bit over that in tax revenue for 1 year, that's the point where I would like to think the public would look at us and say, I think you handled things well, given the potential legal fees, given the potential loss that might occur in court. And like I said, I think they stood firm when they needed to.
Okay, there was one other thing I wanted to mention on Tuesday. Let's see, approved resolution providing for sale of $20 million in electric system revenue refunding bonds. What is that all about? Can you explain that one?
Well, this was a tough vote because it was put in front of us. Do we want to save $5 million? And so we really had to think about that. It was basically because when they did these bonds a while ago, it was, the rate was over 5%. And now with the market the way it has been, and Ehlers brought in, you should see the chart. It's just rates are really down. So now these rates are going to be, in the 1% range, maybe 1.5%. Well, when you look at $20 million and the difference between 5.5 to 1.5, it's a staggering amount. And so, we will, the council, I think appropriately, we're pretty quick to get to that vote and say, yes, we're absolutely going to do this. And of course, Alderman Bucky, or was it Hendler? It was one of them said, how is this going to translate to the ratepayer? So, in other words, what is this going to do? And so this will, you would think that there would be some benefit down the road. Now, when they go to do their rate studies and everything else, that'll come to that. However, one thing is, if you're saving that much money over time, then you're going to have more liquidity. And so it effectively would be helpful. But there's no way that they could say, well, we're going to see a X amount of reduction in a rate, but it would feasibly, if you get $5 million and your rate goes up, then you really got to look at that. So overall, it was very good. It's very positive. Again, the financial picture is just getting better, and that was very helpful. So. And there was different options too, the way they could do it. You could save a little. What was it, between 4.6 and 5.5 or something like that. And so they'll be coming back to the council for final approval on that. And once they what we gave them the authorization to do the other night was go out and get these bids, in essence. And now they'll come back to the council in April with specifically what those bids are, and then we will make that final decision then. But overall, it's very positive.
April 14th, the first council meeting in April, will be the date when the council will be asked to authorize the sale of the bonds. And at that point, I think we'll see some good bids come in. And, it's funny, every meeting, I almost always have my one favorite moment of the meeting. And my favorite moment of Tuesday's meeting was when Dave Ferris was saying, we haven't seen rates this low since ever.
Right.
and he's only, I don't know how many years old he is, but apparently he's unaware of the fact that they've ever been, at least to his knowledge, lower than they are right now. And I'm sure, Bob, you're seeing this in translated into home mortgage refinancing and other things. It's just a historic low in many areas of the sectors of the economy on borrowing. And what a great way to save a lot of money and be able to get some relief for the ratepayers, I assume, along the way.
So it's literally $5 million is going to be the savings?
The final number it's going to be in that neighborhood. It was anywhere from 4.6 to 5.5,
Correct.
and they'll come back with that because there was 4 different ways to do that.
Okay.
And so on the April 14th meeting, we'll know exactly what that is, but that's going to be the range. And even if realistically, it'll be sad, but even if we only say 4.6 million, we'll be happy about that.
Yeah.
All right. Does that do it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I can report one other thing.
Oh, okay.
Just briefly, that coming out of closed session, I like to report things out of closed session when we can. We did hire or promote, if you will, Chris Hawley to the position of street superintendent. He has assumed those duties effectively. He's been the acting street superintendent since January 10th when Dean Schiller left the city. And we're excited. We want to continue some of the initiatives that Dean had started in terms of moving the department forward. But it's an exciting thing for him to be able to take the reins. He's a 20-year employee, was within the engineering division for, I think, roughly 15 years, and now he's been over at Streets for about 5 as assistant superintendent. Excuse me. So look for good things that were started to continue moving forward in some of those initiatives related to whether it be fleet management or better ways of doing things, that type of thing.